So these are tools that, since you all guys are geeks, some of you might know and some you might not. So the entire point of doing this thing was then you'll take at least one tool or maybe 2 or 3 tools that you don't know about, have a lot of usage, and in terms of usability, they're very effective. So the next slide. Did I just say stop? Since I've been asked to keep my talk short, so I'll just start with one little thing that I actually wasn't really supposed to come here today. Late last night, I was just listening to music and doing this and that, the stuff that geeks do. And then in the morning, 10 o'clock, mind you, when this was supposed to start, my dad calls me up and he asks me, so what about that presentation? I'm like, what presentation? So it's like the one that you've been trying to make for 1 month now. So I said that I might go. He's like, you're such a loser. I'm like, yeah, whatever. So my purpose today here is, this is one very important, very interesting quote that I found out, and I don't do a lot of these presentations. So it says, even if you pass out, get tongue-tied or say something stupid during your talk, they won't care. They meaning the audience. As long as they get something of value, they will be thankful. So these are my 2 purposes here today. To give something of value, either a tool or a service that you don't know about, and the other purpose, of course, is not to get tongue-tied. Slide change, please. So this is the first tool that I'm going to be talking about. Show of hands, how many of you know this one? Paint.net. Everyone knows it, everyone uses it. Let's say about 50% of you. Who would say he's an expert on this? No one? Alright, so this is one tool that I've been using for the past, I'd say 4 or 5 years now. I've used ArcSoft Photo Impression, I've used Photoshop, but this is one tool. It's open source, it's free, and it's got amazing usability. It's not open source right now, it started off as open source, yeah. Questions?
He's saying it's not open source.
Right now it's not, it started off as open source, that's the first thing that I said, and that's what is also written there. Initial release was open source. Now, of course, it's got a very intuitive and innovative user interface. It's much better than, I wouldn't say, I'm not trying to compare things here, but it's very easier as compared to some other softwares.
Adobe guys have left.
They've left, so I don't really want to, but you get the picture. Then there's support for layers. You can have unlimited layers. There's unlimited undo. So if you're working on something and you lose track and the image doesn't turn out the way it was supposed to be, you can keep doing undo as long as you want to. Next slide, please. So that's the interface. There's a menu where all the tools are. There's special effects, there's tools, effects like polarize, effects like that. I'm not really going to go into details. I don't remember all of them. Since you guys are geeks, I'm assuming you already know this. There's the layer panel which populates the image bar and the layer panel. The image bar is where you can load multiple images, and on the top right hand side of that panel, as you keep adding images, you get multiple images and the list populates. So if you get more images than the space allowed, you even get a drop down on which, if you click, you can get other images. And in the layer panel, you have different layers, different selections. You could use a magic wand, you could use a square selection, a freehand selection, and you would get different layers to work on. And that's the status bar that shows the page dimensions. So when you're trying to copy one image to some other image, and you need to open a new image. Maybe you're working on a layer, but you need the same dimension. So it's easier to know, just at one look, you know how many pixels there are, you can open a new image. Next slide. Yeah, so now comes I like to call it the funny part, but since none of you are laughing, I don't know what's not funny here. So, next, yeah. So that's me, obviously, like Captain Obvious would say. So that's an image that I had.
My picture, obviously.
You're looking at my picture, obviously. So the first image was actually an image that got red eye. Now, of course, in the first image, I've removed the red eye, but what happened in the second image was I took the layers of the eyes out and then converted that into grayscale and put the layers back into the picture. So that looks, gives me like a vampire sort of an effect. If any of you guys are into that stuff. Next slide. What's that?
Awesome.
Thanks. So yeah, that's the 70s sepia look. Not many people like it these days. They call it lame, and when I post it, they're like, dude, what is that? That's stupid. Next one. That's when someone punched me in my nose while I was editing this image. I don't really like it, and none of the guys at my office do, but
I think that might happen
after this talk, you just told me that the Adobe guys are left. I should be running scared now. Next, yeah. And so that's a wormhole, time travel, here we come. So that's an image that one of my cousins took of mine, and that's this little pool that I have at my place. And so you can see the first image is not really that attractive. I don't look that good, and the second one, I mean, I would like to think that I look like a work of art. I mean, that's the kind of concept that I have. So what I did was increase the brightness of this thing, put in some effects that you can put in through. This has not been edited by any other editor except Paint.net. I sort of evangelize this product to anyone that I talk to that it's good, it's amazing. I don't know why it got shifted from open source. I couldn't find the reason out. I mean, if any of you guys do, please share the reason with me. Does anyone know why this got shifted from open source to a commercial license? Anyone?
It's still free, right?
It's free, but it's not open source.
Open source, but it's still free. It's .NET.
What I heard was that some service, it's a service called Bakuba. How many of you know about this? He knows, I know, I'm following him on Bakuba. You of course have to be there because you're on Twitter. Everyone who's on Twitter is on everything. So,
Many people here are on Twitter, but they are not on Bakuba.
good to know. How many of them are active? Like active, who tweet 70, 80, 100, 20, 120 times a day? Yeah?
That's
So,
spamming.
what happens is that's not spamming, that's intelligent marketing. Could be your own, could be your businesses. That's not spamming at all. So what you do is you register on this page, you get a little application, you run it on your PC, very small application, doesn't take a lot of resources, and it tracks in real time the the softwares that you are using, and it categorizes them into different groups of softwares.
And don't use it in office.
That comes in the last part. I'm actually going to say that you should use it in the office. I'll give you the reason why. So it lets you create your own software profile and share your statistics with the world. You can tell that if you're a graphic designer, you can show that the most used software that you're using is Photoshop, and let's say for example not TweetDeck, which is mine most used.
It does give you weird statistics at times.
So this is the example of a graph. Now I don't need to tell you, I'm assuming, right? I don't need to tell you what a feed is, do I? I don't. You get a feed from there, and there are n number of things that you can do with feeds. You can post it on in the Twitter feed, and every time there's a change in the feed, it will automatically update your Twitter status. And then there are graphs. So this is the categorization that I was talking about. There's a green graph, there's blue graph. You see the red graph, little line. This one goes up, that one goes down. So these are the categories that they've made: audio, video, design, development, games, internet, office. So every application that you use, they've actually categorized it, and based on what you use, the graphs will go up or down. And this one below, individual software usage list, is the list of softwares that you use most. So I can't really see here. That's QuickTime Flare, right? The one on the first. What's that? QuickTime Flare. So this guy's been watching a lot of movies, or I find it weird how that S goes after the application. That wasn't part of the plan. Wow. So in any case, so I like to call this area the bling bling. Every geek whose worth his salt likes to share what he's doing. So the first widget that you see is your top 10 used software. You can post that one on Facebook. There's an application that connects Facebook to this one. And the graph, those are not really graphs. I was maybe high when I was making that. Sorry. Those are not graphs. They are widgets that you get, and you post it maybe on a blog. Maybe. I'm saying maybe. I don't know why I'm saying maybe. You post them on blogs, on your website. There's a code, HTML code that you get. You post it there. And the last one I really like, that's a signature. That's a signature that I myself use. Instead of the regular warm regards, thank you very much, I don't know how computers are used and this, that, you can actually put this one in and look cool. And potential uses, yes. So I installed this software on one of my colleagues' desktop, and this is how the conversation went. I come in on Monday, I have a look at her graph, and I go, hey, what happened to your graphs on Saturday? Right, because on Saturday, there was no graph on her page. It actually went like, nothing. Then she replies back, get a life outside of your laptop. Go out. Because my graph was like 24 hours on a Saturday. And one of the users that you of course were saying, maybe not install this in the office. I say that people who are authoritarian leaders maybe should, and just simply be a Nazi and go asking people, what happened to your graphs? What is wrong with you, dude?
The problem with using Bakuba in office is that you tell your boss, I've been working on this report for a week, and it shows that, hey, you were playing Touch Racer.
Yeah. Exactly what I'm talking about. And this one is a really, really useful tool. It happens with me a lot. It used to happen. So if, let's say, for example, you have multiple bank accounts or you have so many social profiles, it's difficult to keep track of what passwords you're using, especially with banks like Axis. I don't know if anyone has an account at Axis. Does anyone have an account at Axis? Those guys have some weird password policy and they change it every 2 months and they are not supposed to keep the same password. You have to change the password, add letters, remove letters. At the end of the time, you forget who you were. I mean, forget the password. So what this software does is this is completely open source and it creates a file that's called a master file or it's called a database file. And it stores all your passwords into different categories and can be opened with this particular software. The software is completely portable, can be carried around on a pen drive. And it's so that comes on the next slide. Yeah, helps you manage your passwords in a secure way. Obviously, Captain Obvious. You can put all the passwords in. Yeah, next one. So that's the main window. That's the context menu. You can actually copy. There's no masked passwords here. You can copy passwords and just paste them on the website that you want to paste them on. You know, no stars that you don't like. That's the create database window. You set up. There are two options. So that's why I say this is high on security. First, this is encrypted. Second, you can save it with a master password. Now, the master password has to be a good combination, not like your birthday. You know, the 7th March 1987. Anyone comes and opens your password. I mean, your database. Next, you can create a key file. You can either create a key file or set a master password or do both of them together. So a key file is a file that's used to open the database. In absence of a password, you take a key file and it opens the database. In absence of a key file, if you don't have a key file, you can just enter the password. If you want multiple security features, you can carry the key file around with you on a pen drive or on a CD-ROM, keep it in your bag. So no one, even if he knows your password, cannot open the database. He will have to put in the key file, find the key file, use the key file, and then add the password and then open it. Next one, please. So these are the features. It's strong on security. We just spoke about that. You can use multiple user keys. So different users can have their own different user keys and there's an authority matrix. You can decide which user gets access to which passwords. It's portable and there's no installation required. The passwords can be exported to text, HTML, XML files or comma separated value files. It also has a strong random password generator. Let's say you get bored of making or thinking of passwords and you run out of imagination. You can just click on the software and it will make a password for you. I mean, according to the criteria that you assign to the software. And last but not least, of course, it's open source. That's the theme of the talk. This one, I think it's the fourth one that we're going through, right? The fourth one. This one is Digo. It's a toolbar that you can use with Firefox. Because I use Firefox, I love Firefox. I think Firefox is one of the most rocking browsers around. I don't like IE, I've seen IE8, I've seen Opera. Opera doesn't work with anything right now. I've seen Google. Google doesn't work with some HTML site. It says that Chrome cannot edit the HTML. What is that supposed to mean? I have no clue. So it's a powerful research tool and knowledge sharing community. There's a video on the next slide, I think 5 minutes, so we'll just go through that. I'll tell you briefly after that how I use this one and what's important and what's the most commonly used features that I use in this one. So we can just move to that video and play that video. But we don't have sound, right? How about Chrome? Would anyone like to tell me why you love Chrome as opposed to Firefox? YouTube and watch this video. It's a very interesting software. You have to see it in action and watch the YouTube clip. I will tell you the features that I use in this software on the next slide. There's a read later button on this software that there's a toolbar. If you're on a page, so many times it happens, you've got like 10, 12 tabs open and you have no clue of what you're doing and what you're researching and what you're not. So all you have to do is, you don't want to lose track of what you're reading. You click on that, it will close. But there's also another button which says unread. You click on it and you'll get the list of all the things that you have clicked read later. So you don't lose track of any interesting web page that you find or come across. I think StumbleUpon does something like that, but it's a lot more, let's say, complicated. This is very easy. It just makes instantaneous lists for you.
You love Firefox, right?
Do you not like Firefox? I love Firefox. That was the first thing is the send to button. If you like a page and you want to share it with your people, your homies or whatever, whatever the thing that you're with the homers. So you can just click on the send to button. It gives you a list. You can click on Twitter. There's Facebook. There's posted as a blog. You just click on it. It connects with your profile and directly posts the page that you're on. It will post the page there. And the last one is, if you're into a lot of research and you're doing a particular research about some topic and you need to create a list but don't really want to do in a Word document because that's lame, You can just start bookmarking those, and it will make a web list for you. So you can share it with other people. So let's say, for example, there's a graphics designer and you're, let's say, a content developer. He's interested in learning content and you're interested in learning a bit of graphics. So he'll make a list about the interesting web pages that he finds about graphics, and likewise, you'll make a content list and then you can share. So that's how it goes. Next one. Okay, this one is really interesting. This service is called Retagger. That's the name, retagger.com. You have a question?
I just have a question about the previous tool which you were talking about.
Yeah.
Is it recording your what you read and?
In one place, we'll go to the next page and see the profile. You can set up your own custom domain. So let's say you can set up, you already have one in kinshuksunil.in.com. But I mean, if you want another one, you can just make it. It's a Web2 profile. We go to the next page and see that. And the profile is portable. You can carry it with you. You can send it to people. You can send email links. So that's the profile. It has your designation, your company information, your LinkedIn ID. It has what you're looking for. You're looking for employees or partnership and business opportunities. It has your contact address. It has your about me. There's a small little button that says interact with me. When you click on that one, you can send me a mail directly. You can go to my Facebook page, connect with me on Facebook. There's a little list here that says all the services that I am on. You can just click on any one of those, to the extent that at the bottom of this page, you don't see this complete page. At the bottom of the page, you see what I've been tweeting, you see what the blog posts that I've been making for my company, and at the last part of the page, you can even see the kind of music that I was listening last to, or what I'm listening to currently through Last FM. Next one. So that's the interactive Web2 card that you get. You can embed this on your blogs or on your websites. It's clickable. You can click on the links. You can find more information about this one. That also contains your latest tweet. And this is the email signature that you get out from this one. It's completely customizable. You can add, remove the image. You can add websites, remove websites, add the service buttons that you want, don't want, remove the border, add the border, do whatever you want to do. And there's a little tip that I have here, and this is what I did. I took out the HTML codes of Retagger and Vakupa, the last signature that we saw, combined them both. So what you see is all my contact ID, all my social profiles there, and along with that, the softwares that I'm using. So the first person that sees that, I automatically get a call and say, dude, what is that? I want to know. Next one, thanks. Last tool. Not a very complicated tool, I would say, for anyone who manages their own networks or even their laptop, but very useful. Did I just forget the name? Good. So this one's called NetSiteMan. The concept is that when you're at office or when you're at work, there are different IP settings that you have, and you don't want to manually change them all the time. You get tired of putting in all those numbers. Sometimes you forget them. You can just set in different profiles like home, school, work, friend. Okay, I don't have a friend profile, don't have a mobile profile, don't have a school profile, just home and work. So you set in the IP there, and the next slide, you get a little icon in the taskbar. You can right click on that one, and instead of manually putting in, it will do all the work. All you have to do is click on that button. So let's say you've gone back to home, you just click on home and it will automatically switch the settings for you. Next one, I think, is anyone interested in this? I mean, I don't know. Is anyone interested in what I do? Yeah, how are you? I wasn't expecting you here. I mean, suddenly. We met a session called Benefis. There's go down. I am a content developer. I make customized training products for them, like leadership development and management, middle management training, senior management training. And I am a social media strategist. That sounded very cool, so I just put it in there. I wanted to put something else, but strategist. I want to get my designation changed to that. By profession. I'm sorry. Don't catch me. Alright, that's about it. Thank you. Thanks.